First off, I've noticed that my older videos have just gotten some traction courtesy of a bonus clip I had just posted. I appreciate the traffic, and for those of you who checked my first Gator Love website video, yes, I tried looking into regaining the option for its original 1080p resolution. If anyone has suggestions about correcting that, I would love to hear them. Now, my real ROMhack of Earthbound, which will feature Paula and other girls with their original blonde, is going to specialize in quality of life improvements, bug and script fixes, and common sense revisions. That, however, is going to be a while longer after I look into the remaining changes and then play the game through to capture each change. For now, you can find this one linked in the description to romhacking.net and romhack.ing each. There are actually a total of 12 shades of brown to choose from, something that only crossed my mind to create during a playthrough of what was originally just one shade. For context, this was an idea I originally got for Natalie in Epic Battle Fantasy IV, in that case to go hand in hand with her naked cleavage, while mostly considering gameplay changes otherwise. That was 2 years after I started thinking about how games in general could be modified, following a falling out particularly with Star Ocean, First Departure R, which I will talk more about when Earthbound's main hack is done, if it doesn't end up getting its own video first. Part of what led me to expand such an idea to Earthbound, though, was someone's question on Reddit why almost no one has brown hair there or in its prequel. That said, due to technical limitations that could only be remedied in theory with some kind of enhancement chip, there are 2 NPCs whose dresses would not have been possible to attain the color of while brunifying them without complicating things more than necessary. I didn't mind manually recoloring a minor detail like someone else's gold necklace, though. Given how the Super NES's GPU works, I was lucky to have what was basically a spare palette for a purpose like this, with things aligned in such a way with what I wanted and didn't want, including 4 women I did not wish to brunify, so as to improve a couple of details without even trying. The making of this hack will be the topic of my next video, having just taken the time to record a recreation of it for this one. Now, the 4 grown women I left blonde are not decent people. A big part of why brunette girls appeal to me so much has to do with Saga, the kind and cheerful human protagonist of A Little Snow Fairy Sugar. While most people of any hair color do come in all stripes, someone like Miu from Strawberry Marshmallow is a perfect example of a brunette girl I don't like because of how she treats her friends. Admittedly, my tastes are more complex than that, but Lardna and Miss Fake, unlike Paula, are still not people I would want to end up lumping together with Saga Bergman, Narue Nanase, or Sakura Kinomoto. As for what made Saga so special in the first place, back in 2008, directly following The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, Sugar was the second show I started renting on DVD from Netflix, which was what had finally given me some initial momentum to check out anime much more actively than before. Up until then, for all my appreciation of anime as a type of art style, I never really went out of my way to check out actual anime series ever since I got bored with my first 2 anime in life over 2002. Even knowing since '03 about a site like Robert's Anime Corner Store, Netflix's DVD rental service at the time provided a much more cost-effective and convenient means to start checking stuff out through than paying in full for each series or individual volume, especially if I were to end up not liking something, once I caught wind of such a business model. And yes, almost everything was available on YouTube at the time, which was how I watched one show that never got localized. However, we didn't have Roku yet to access that through our TV, I didn't have a laptop yet, and with our only desktop at the time, my only real seating option would have been in a confined office chair, which would have been a lot less comfortable than on our couch or even on my bedroom floor in front of my gaming TV. Well, I didn't think much about Haruhi herself since watching her show's 1 season at the time. Saga gradually went on after I finished Sugar to form a common denominator with 3 other characters, despite fading to the sidelines and then the background until the show's long-planned turn in July 2024, in a line of anime I started showing my mother late in 21. One of those girls, Mai Tsurugino, was the first main character in a short-lived franchise known as Makiruna Makendo that I had already been obsessed with by that point. At that time, I had Googled multiple times for the OVA, which wasn't on YouTube yet. I found that almost a year later on a site called Mega Uploads. I was also trying for months to figure out how to run the PCFX exclusive third game on an emulator called Mednafen before deciding several later just to order the actual system on eBay, hoping to eventually begin a full franchise fan dub. The other two, the unused female PC of Pokemon Generation 1 and May of Gen 3, along with the black-haired male PC from Gen 2, were previously the planned lead characters of some barely executed fanfic ideas of a friend of mine at the time, whom I then decided upon as the lead characters for what would become one of my main fanfic projects for a decade, despite never panning out either. Without describing the actual premises, it was late in 2005 when I would post a request to a designated board on adultfanfiction.net. That was when someone asking to be called Jake met me on AIM to discuss an idea he had involving the Gen 1 PC he decided to name Ellen. Over the next 2 years, we would discuss a similar idea, each involving the other two characters, and then the summer of '08, at a point at which I'd already started watching Sugar, was when I would start watching Ultimate Girls and tie all three characters together for one common story of my own. The original idea did draw upon Ultimate Girls, but is also similar retroactively to Inukami and this ebook called The Tribulations of Omega Girl. However, it didn't take long for me to focus more on how I would turn the whole thing into a game for myself, to relive the games on my terms, and especially the Pal Park in Sinnoh and both of the Battle Frontiers, two combined of those, each at a point at which the Lake Guardians would no longer need the protagonists as some sort of battery. Jake eventually came to hate the whole thing. We fell out from there over a matter of months, and I eventually grew bored with it myself. I might have someone else reboot it after I secure a new job, depending on how much I can get done beforehand. That's on my agenda. On the one hand, even apart from how it all ended, the less said about that guy, the better. However, I do not intend to deprogram my interest in brunette girls just because of his involvement in that. Even if that were never to have formed in the first place, there are even unrelated things I am particularly grateful for that had resulted from that relationship. So, yeah, Ellen, May, Mai, Saga, their simultaneous roles in my life during the summer of '08 are what led me to favor brown hair in particular on cute anime girls. While I didn't originally mind it on jerkasses like Yasuna Oribe or villains such as these here Puelle Magi, that changed when I read Ben's entry from Tales from the Crypt Keeper on TV Tropes, Complete Monster, Western Animation, decided to look him up, and found myself turned off by one of the furthest people from a cute anime girl, and especially from someone like Saga, having such a feature I normally associate with those. What a male character like him would eventually have to do with 4 women in Earthbound, I will admit, I actually do wonder often enough if it's more of a male thing than a moral thing. For one thing, I did experience similar dissonance before by someone good but rugged like Sergeant Clay here from Fallen City Brawl, but not by such equivalent female characters as Yuka and Tamao from Advanced Variable GO2. But that obviously wouldn't be the case with 4 average grown men Saga herself associates with, one of whom is not even very attractive. To name some counterexamples, my first would be this girl with the phone, and no, that wasn't a cartoony thing either, given one decent male character in that same series, and 2, girls from other Western cartoons I found attractive enough in passing. Back to anime. Just months ago, HIDIVE started advertising Season 2 of Call of the Night, and while drinking would be fair game, smoking is another turnoff for me. Looking Anko up anyway, though, also reveals her to be genocidal just for one vampire killing her mother. There is some good in her, but that should say plenty about someone like Naoko Yamamoto, Calamity Mary's human form from Magical Girl Raising Project. And then for a separate reason altogether, I do recall being turned off by a thumbnail of Buddy Daddies of Miri with her mouth and fingers all covered in something while she's eating. I do get that she's only 4, but such a gross image involving a brunette girl still created similar dissonance, with Saga et al. Being the reason I like brown hair in the first place. As to what I find currently, my mother and I have recently finished watching Season 1 of The Irregular at Magic High School, which does feature several brown-haired male characters in roles ranging from bullies to terrorists. It didn't bother me that much, but maybe because there are also some positive characters of both genders to balance things out somewhat, the most notable females being Azusa Nakajo and Honoka Mitsui. As for women, Crunchyroll recently started advertising the dark history of the reincarnated villainess. I didn't find myself turned off that much, but the brown hair on its own still wasn't enough to pique my interest in that show, even though I do gather the villainess herself to be a good version of herself that the protagonist reincarnates as. Hence, no reason still to bother brunifying those 4 particular women back in Earthbound. Well, for comparison videos, this may sound counterintuitive, but I will be presenting each main hack with the original hair colors so as to demonstrate brown hair and even other design changes on any of my target characters as mutually optional with other changes. And no, those will not include beehive hairdos, weight gain, enhanced body parts, or flesh exposure, restorations aside. That said, my real playthroughs for each game will feature the brunette versions of each relevant character. For Earthbound, I do not plan on hosting a total of 12 playthroughs, but instead will choose a shade based on a 12-sided die roll. As you can see beyond these new starting plans here, and I will mention this again in just a bit, most games on my main hit list are RPGs, except for the yet untranslated Kirato Kaiketsu, which does have RPG elements, and the Sonic Adventure duology. I will explain that soon, albeit indirectly. You can read about and comment on my plans in a link below, but do keep in mind that whoever I plan on for each game may change once I learn more about them, or even the games themselves, whichever of those I don't drop entirely. Now, some of you might feel inclined to recommend stuff to me on the basis of a cute brunette girl in your party, or at least consistently throughout the game. While I make no promises on anything, I would welcome suggestions in general, and would be especially glad to prioritize those from anyone who either funds my channel through Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee, or takes up some ROM hacking for me. What I seek primarily, though, is varieties of food in each game, which I once coined into a trope called Game Gourmet, and even then, there are criteria I look for in how it is actually implemented, amongst other things, which is why I specialize in RPGs in the first place. As an aside, since I'll be linking to each entry I visit for whoever wants a closer read, I have come to accept DLC to serve legitimate purposes case by case. However, exact counts of 10, in this case played straight for PCs, is another pet peeve of mine, being so easy to default to and overused. And no, I'm not playing the Vita original with less content overall. I would have settled for X Plus so early on back then, before such a whole host of other games went on to overshadow both that game and Sailor Moon, another story. This deal with food all has to do with Earthbound as the inspiration for my main project, a Lucky Star fan game that I pursue regularly, and created an update post on Dreamwidth for the sake of this video. For now, you can read my original attempt at a fanfic through a link in the description, and to address this in turn, despite some pics likely to appear under More by DMX Rated that I specifically keep out of my featured folder, you can rest assured that the project itself is not going to feature weight gain, although I do plan for the party to find a baby boy at one point. Before Starbound, I would very much recommend watching the anime first. The main series is currently streaming on Crunchyroll, although the OVA is only available legitimately on DVD. That, as you can guess, is exactly why I will be giving Earthbound the first honor for both ROMhacks and playthroughs. My next video will cover my real hack of Earthbound, which, as I've mentioned at the start of this one, will focus on quality of life improvements, bug and script fixes, and common sense revisions. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe to my channel, and support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee.